episode of Crippled by Culture, where we talk about everything in life and related to the disabled and chronically ill community. My name is Sean Gold, and I am an author, advocate, and nonverbal public speaker for the disability community. To provide a quick visual description for accessibility, I'm a Black man with a white tracheotomy breathing tube in my neck. I am wearing a red shirt. The person off camera who you hear is speaking for me. This video is of a Zoom call with me and the person talking for me off camera, and my guest is in the other box next to it. Before we jump in, I just want to give a quick shout out to Raven McFadden for being my voice transcriber for this episode. Thank you so much. Today we're talking about the intersections of disability and workplace equity, and I'm really excited for this one. So let's get into it and meet today's awesome guests. Dr. Akilah Cadet is the founder and CEO of Change Cadet, a creative organizational development consulting firm. As a Forbes Next 1000 entrepreneur, her work is behind some of the biggest brands you use every day. Dismantling white supremacy through storytelling is at the core of her work as a leader, speaker, creative director, producer, writer, editor, designer, co owner of the Oakland Roots and Soul soccer teams, host of Humane Rights podcast, and author of White Supremacy is All Around Notes from a Black Disabled Woman in a White World. She literally has all the degrees, lives and loves Oakland, California, and celebrates her disability, is a proud Beyoncé advocate, and has an incredible shoe game. Dr. Cadet, thank you for being here today. How are you doing? Would you mind giving a visual description of yourself, please?
Sure, happy to give a visual description. First, I want to say thank you, Sean, for inviting me. I'm very excited to be here and hang out with you. And also, Raven, wonderful job. I hear you're also a Beyonce advocate, so want to acknowledge your wonderfulness as well. My name is Dr. Akilah Cadet. I am in the words of D'Angelo, a brown sugar woman. I'm a proud Black disabled woman. I am seated in my office in Oakland, California, with my angel dog behind me, some pictures and books on a shelf. I have hazel eyes, so that means I get what I want. My pronouns are bad bitch or she, her. I'm wearing a white oversized t-shirt today that says, that I designed myself that says, you can use your spoons to eat ice cream because in our disabled community, in our chronic illness community, we're always thinking about how much spoons we have in a day. And it's just a way to celebrate all the shit we go through and how we can celebrate ourselves amongst it all. Um, I'm really happy to be here, hence the dimple that's popping out because I'm just really excited for this conversation. I am also tired because I'm immunocompromised and I am getting over tonsillitis. So I woke up 40 minutes ago, so which is good.
Girl.
Yeah, to get some rest. And then I am very public about my disability, so I'll just get this out of the way so folks can wonder why I'm so dynamic. I have dynamic disability, so I have both non-apparent and apparent disability. And that happens because I live with multiple rare conditions. The Beyonce of it all is myopathic Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's a rare type of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So I live in a lot of chronic pain. My body doesn't know what to do with collagen. Collagen isn't everything. So I have lots of comorbidities. But in short, I bruise easily, I cut easily. My joints dislocate some of the time. They partially dislocate all day, every day. I'm always putting joints back in. It makes my body think it's having a heart attack every day. So I live with the symptoms of a heart attack, lots of other heart conditions. I have a rare type of spinal arthritis called ankylosing spondylitis, where in short, it means my spine is actively fusing together. So that creates a lot of pain. And yeah, that makes me a disabled body. So sometimes you'll see me with a cane, like the cover of my book, or a neck brace. But regardless of a cane or not, I'm always in pain but yet always a baddie. So I'm excited to chat with you, Sean.
Okay, so you answered the first two questions for me, so I'll just go ahead and skip to.
Sean, can you tell that I'm a Virgo because I already answered additional questions?
So, how old were you when you got diagnosed? Do you feel like there are other things going on that do you feel like there are other things going on that you have not diagnosed yet or gotten diagnosed?
Yeah, so 9 years ago, I was diagnosed with my heart stuff. And
Okay.
then about 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with myopathic Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And so I was already an adult, navigating these things. But what I've been diagnosed with, I've had my entire life. I've been disabled my entire life and I had no idea. Right. So when I was younger, I was a kid, high school, I played a lot of sports. I played basketball, I played tennis. I was just very, very active. And so, ankle problems, knee dislocations, those were all like basketball. That's what happens when you play basketball. You are, a girl at that time. And they would always say, like, girls, young women have hips. And so the weight distribution is wrong. And that's why I have knee and ankle problems. But then I got to the point where I could no longer play sports anymore because my knee kept going out, which is myopathic Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, that I realized doing like basic shit like walking or, traveling and you just kind of walk around the city or on a trip, and I would end up with a knee injury or ankle or foot injury. And so from there, I had to kind of figure out that like something else was going on because I wasn't doing high impact sports at all. And so it wasn't until I went on a family trip going to visit my little brother who was doing a semester abroad in college in London that I started having flutters on the flight there. And I've been to London so many times. There was like no kind of like excitement. I'm always happy to see family, but it was weird that I was having these irregular heartbeats and flutters. And then I was at the end of the trip, I was in Paris at the Louvre, the big fancy museum, and in the Egyptian antiquities section, and I had the worst chest pain ever. But since my my family is on my dad's side from Haiti, and my family on my mom's side is from Louisiana, I naturally thought that a dead person was trying to talk to me. I thought a mummy was just trying to talk to me, and that's why I was having chest pain. So I was like, I don't understand this message. And I removed myself from the exhibit to like get some air. But when I came back from that trip, I kept going in tachycardia. I kept having chest pain. I had numbness on my left side. And so that's about 9 years ago, I celebrate my disability anniversary every August. So about 9 years ago was when I realized that um, that was the start of my disability journey. And so, unlike folks who may be, in the words of Lady Gaga, born this way, I was, but I never had the privilege to know that. And so, for the past 8, 9 years, I've been learning what disability means for me, what disability means for the community, the intersectionality of disability, and how there's so many layers to it. The way in which ableism shows up within our own disability community, racism shows up within our own disability community, and proudly making that part of my intersectionality and identity when I have the privilege to pass as non-disabled. So I wanted to use that as a way to advocate for anyone, however dynamic, apparent, non-apparent disability, and that's what I do.
When you first were diagnosed, or even throughout your journey over the last 8, 9 years, did you experience any internalized ableism? How was that journey? How's that journey been like towards like inner acceptance and accepting yourself and get into that journey of, as you say, being a disabled baddie?
Yes. So it's really interesting because at first it was we need to fix your heart stuff. something is wrong, we're going to fix it. Like disability was never part of the discussion. It was just, you're young. I was in my early 30s. And so it was like, how are you? And I'm a vegetarian. I have no cardiovascular issues in my family. Didn't have any cardiovascular issues before. So it was like, we need to fix you because you're young. So you're broken. So we're going to fix you. So ultimately, that's the journey I was on. I'm like, something's wrong. We're going to fix it. Maybe it'll be a surgery or maybe it's a medication or something, but I will be fixed. As it became like a year, about a year and a half, I think, um, or two, my primary doc, who I adore, sat me down in one of our mini appointments where I needed to fill out my temporary American with Disabilities Act placard, my ADA placard. And so I needed to fill it out, and I'm in California, so I think it's the same everywhere. It's red for the temporary one and blue for the permanent one. And so she looked at me and said, Akilah, you are disabled. So we're going to get you the permanent placard because otherwise you have to go every 6 months. Every 6 months, I have to go to DMV. Every 6 months, I have to go to, and everyone loves DMV. And I looked at her and I said, okay. And then later that day or that week, I went to DMV to get my placard. And it wasn't until I went back into my car and I looked at this blue permanent disabled placard that I realized that my life has changed forever. And now I'm disabled. And it wasn't like a sad thing, it was a new thing I had to address on top of being a woman in America, on top of being a Black person in America. Now I have this other part of my intersectionality disability. And so I needed to figure out what that meant for me and if I would be accepted into the disability community. And so it's really funny because I think of the placard as like the Crips and the Bloods, like two gangs, right? Because one side temporarily disabled, you are still disabled, but you're temporary. So it's your situation is going to change and you get to go back into what people may view as a privilege of being non-disabled. Or that red placard is going to bring you into a new game. You'll get jumped in to a new game, right? And you're going to go to the Crips now because you are now going to go be part of the permanently disabled community. And so I had to go on a journey to figure out what that meant for me. And then, like I was saying earlier, I realized that I have so much privilege in advocating in ways that other people in the disability community can't advocate for because one, they don't want to, they're tired. Two, people are really, really incredibly cruel. Three, people are not patient and understanding of disability and not being disabled. Like me talking to you, Sean, is literally nothing. But I'm sure there's people you may have interviewed and they may like be uncomfortable or they may feel like they don't know how to answer questions or may feel like they don't know how to ask you questions, right? But because I come with this lived experience that I could have known when I was born, but now know disability is one of the like most incredible, beautiful things, places, and spaces to be in because that gives you an opportunity for compassion and that gives you an opportunity for advocacy. So yeah.
How do you define what a disability is? Like, what's your personal definition of what a disability is?
Yeah. That's a great question. So there's so many different rules of measure for being disabled. But essentially for me, it's a few things. Um, do you have a risk of death? That's there, either daily, seasonally, like, are you at a higher risk for something? Do you have to do something every day that is a modification, one way or another, right? You may need an assistive device, you may be out of breath, you need to sit down, you're taking medication to keep a certain function of your body that, a modification of what your body cannot do. Um, it also means you're in a position for accommodation, right? So, like, whew, grocery shopping is one of the worst things for me to do And I didn't realize how important it was for me to park in the front. So before my disability progressed, I would go, I would shop, I have the cart, pick up all these things, get the bags, bag myself, whatever it was, go to wherever in the parking lot, put it in my car, and then go to wherever home I lived and take it. I cannot do that. That is hard for me to do without sometimes being in tachycardia, so rapid heart rate, running out of breath, just being exhausted. I could go to the grocery store today, get a couple things, come home and sit in my car for 30 minutes because I'm so tired before I have to get out of my car, right? And so those modifications and accommodations that are needed. And then also when your body doesn't do something normal. We love that word so much, normal, right? So um my body doesn't function in the way that a body is supposed to function, right? So with myopathic Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, my collagen deficiency ruins so many things in the organs of my body. Your skin's the biggest organ. I have lots of skin issues. I have stomach issues, GI, gastrointestinal issues. I have heart issues. I have breathing issues. That all that stuff puts me at a higher risk of further progression of disability or other things. So when I first started, I just had a couple of heart conditions, but now I have 20 plus some odd conditions that I just got diagnosed with something yesterday. I've been diagnosed with three things in the past month. One of them is extremely rare. And so that's the last part of disability for me, which is uh, grief. There's so much grief that comes with disability because as your body changes or you need a new thing or um, like 3 years ago, I wasn't immunosuppressed, but because of a medication I need to keep my spine from stopping to fuse together more, I am. So I get tonsillitis all the time. Like it's a whole thing. And you grieve the person you were, you grieve the person you are, you grieve the person you become. And that's because so much is outside of your control navigating disability. So and then I would also say you hate the healthcare system. That's another indication of being disabled because you're gaslit, your pain's not believed, there's no sense of urgency. Like the thing I've been diagnosed with is actively trying to kill me, and I can't be seen for 4 months. So like the specialist who diagnosed it with me was like, "Oh, you're too complicated for me. I'm not going to take care of you." And so I've been referred to another specialty person, but they were just like, we can't see you anytime soon. We understand what you've been diagnosed with. We just can't see you. So, yeah, if something comes up, just go to the emergency room. And I think that's another part of it too, where you're just not believed, you're silenced, you're dealing with these systems and structures, you're frustrated when someone's like, yeah, you'll just need to do some imaging. And you don't know how long it's going to take for the fucking imaging to happen. And then you have to live in the discomfort or whatever, or piece things together. Um, so, yeah.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about what your grieving process with all these changes and all these things happen so rapidly and so fast. Tell me about what that's been like.
You know, so again, even though I was born disabled and I didn't know, I never learned how to be disabled as I grew up, right? So learning about the systems and structures, learning about the Americans with Disabilities Act and protection that I have, learning about my rights. I had to, and still am, learning about it now. And I I grieve the times that I've had with providers when these things, clear signs were happening, and no one wanted to look further into it. Um, I grieve the fact that I guess I was fortunate to not know that I was disabled, so I lived my life a little differently. Now I have to be much more careful with what I do with my body. So I'm happy about that, but at the same time, I'm like sad that I had that opportunity. I grieve that today could be the last day I do something the same way. So my fingers and my wrists partially dislocate every day. And about 2 years ago, I could open a Gatorade bottle, but now I can't open a Gatorade. I don't have the strength to open a Gatorade bottle. It's too hard. I have to use my little arthritic hands device to open some things. Yeah, and so I have this like daily grief of maybe it's the last day, and then because I can have a heart attack and die at any moment in time, um, I don't know if today is my actual last day. And so that's grief that I have. And then now, like I said, I've been diagnosed with three things in a month, one which isn't rare. I don't know what my future holds because I'm not getting the care that I need for this new rare thing. And so um, I'm grieving what that life may be um, for me. And so grief is always here, grieving who I was, grieving who I am, grieving who I will be. But even though I grieve every day, that doesn't mean that I can't find pockets of joy every day and celebrate myself. My whole mantra is keep being amazing. I am nothing short of amazing, literally and figuratively, with what I can do. And so even though I allow myself to kind of sit in the sadness and the grief, um, I give myself grace with the grief. I find the little pockets of joy and I keep being amazing.
What are some of the ways that you persevere, you push through like that grief and find what are some ways that you keep your spirit protected and like you find those pockets of joy and how do you get through like those intense moments of grief?
Yeah, well, I allow myself to feel the moments of grief. Like this diagnosis I got yesterday is quite depressing and also progressive. And so um I made myself a nice little dinner and I ordered some stuff online. And when I say ordered some stuff online, I ordered like cereal that I really like. So it'll be delivered today, and I'm really excited that I get to have this cereal that I don't normally have, but it's like special occasion cereal. Um, so those are like the little pockets of joy that I have. I get to like on a Saturday when we're chatting today, have this moment of joy with you, Sean, and with you, Raven, to have a conversation that is celebrating how wonderful we all are, the three of us are. Um, I um, I just find ways to like find happiness. You know, it could be a funny little TV show. I make myself laugh all the time. I talk to myself a lot. I just really, again, find those little things because they mean so much to me. Tomorrow I'm very excited about just laying on my couch I make myself a little heated burrito with a heated blanket and a weighted heated pad and another heated pad and a vibrating heating pad. And I just kind of sit there and kind of sleep throughout the day and watch stuff. I look forward to those little, those little tiny moments. Grief is hard. It's incredibly hard, but I don't let it dictate my life because unfortunately I wake up every day and I keep being amazing. So even amongst the grief, I keep moving forward. I keep doing things. I keep having accomplishments. I keep having these opportunities to talk to folks like you. And so I'll just keep doing it.
Okay. What do you think you've learned on your journey of acquiring a disability that stays with you on a daily basis from the disability community or a specific disabled person? Like, what's one thing that really
Yeah.
sticks?
So I wouldn't say I acquired everything. I was able to accept something that no one ever told me about. Like I was able to maybe reclaim my disability community. Um, and so I think about like coming into the disability community, I oh man, so the first way I did it was I just on my Instagram, I just posted a picture of me and my heart monitor and I was like, yeah, So I have heart problems now. Like, I'm learning about the disability community, and the comments that I received, or the DMs I received, were folks who either had heart things or had health things going on. I started following, disabled activists. I started continually being vocal about my journey on social media, and so I will say the way that I kind of was like the most welcome in was with the Ehlers-Danlos community, so Ehlers-Danlos syndrome community, and when I started talking about how another Instagram post that I was diagnosed with that time, I was diagnosed with hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but I was later diagnosed with myopathic Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I was thrown into the EDS community, and like I literally announced it. Then I was speaking on a rare uh like condition uh panel. From that panel, the president of the Ehlers-Danlos Society, which is the largest organization in the world, invited me to be the keynote speaker at the Ehlers-Danlos International Conference in Ireland, like that next year. And so I was diagnosed in 2021. I'm speaking about it, in 2022, and then I'm speaking at the largest conference about it at 2023, and then also simultaneously invited to join the board because they have horrible representation of BIPOC people, Black, Indigenous people of color, Black people in general. And all of that movement allowed me to build my network of people who have multiple comorbidities. They may have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome or something similar or not. And that was really welcoming. So I would say that the disability community is one of the softest, warmest, funniest places you can be, because we all have to navigate a whole bunch of shit, and we use a lot of humor, and it's like a supportive space to be in, for that. I think it's still, there's isms and barriers and problems and hierarchical structures in the disability community, but in general, um, you can feel seen, validated, and heard in the space, and that's what happened to me. And so I started learning more about myself and community and how people ask for help and how they advocate for themselves. In addition to the advocacy, I know myself with being a former health administrator and pre-med and 3 health degrees, and yeah, came with a spot. And then from that I realized that I have pretty privilege. I have dynamic disability privilege. I have ways to help people if they don't see me as a woman, or if they don't see me as a Black person, maybe they'll have compassion and understanding for me as a disabled person. And if that's the way you need to come in, so you can keep learning and unlearning about yourself, learning and unlearning about the bias that you may have, and learning and unlearning that the only thing you can become at any moment in time is disabled, whether temporarily or permanently, that I can use my actual body, my mind, these degrees to help dismantle white supremacy, which upholds ableism and racism and all that other stuff, but to get people to think differently, and to see disabled folks as brilliant, beautiful, powerful human beings.
So, when you look back at the beginning of this journey, did you feel like you didn't have enough time to process the fact that you shared your disability publicly before um, receiving opportunities to be invited to speak on these incredible platforms that can also be a little bit intimidating?
So, I mean, I was already a public speaker before then. So I was like, come on in, because I was already talking about, you know, uh, being a Black person in America, being a woman in America, how we're treated differently, right? In the workplace. So it was just like, yeah, great. And now I'm a trifecta, right? To bring things in. I'm also a rip the band-aid off person. So I just like, okay, this is me. I'm gonna go into it. I'll do my research because I'm a doc and I'm a nerd. And it's like, yeah, wow. So it's estimated around 26% of people with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome are on disability. in the US. Other conditions I have are classified as disabilities, or people are on disability. And here I am. I have the privilege and also the pain to have this business that I run for 11 years and to get into spaces and places to help educate about disability. Right. So Google may want to, not anymore, they don't do it anymore, but Google before Donald Trump was in office would want to work with Black women and bring in Black women, right? And then it's like, oh, surprise, also disabled, right? So then I'm throwing something else in there to educate folks. Like to me, it made clear sense that I'm in these important spaces and places that I can help educate, provide awareness and advocacy for our disabled community. Again, I have all the privilege of the world that no one would know. And I say this with confidence, I am so pretty that when I walk with my cane, people always say, "Are you okay? What happened to you?" No one ever thinks I'm disabled. They never think that because of how my body looks, everything I have is temporary. If I have my neck brace on, oh, were you in an accident? And my response is always the same. I'm disabled. And they don't know what to do. But how? You don't look disabled. How can you be disabled? Because I look closer to them, or I look like a person who could never have a disability. And I know that. And so that's why I use my spaces and places, my platforms, my body, my even my book cover, because it's my book is White Supremacy is All Around, Notes from a Black Disabled Woman in a White World. I purposely, and I knew when I got my book deal that I wanted to have a cane on the cover. I knew I wanted to have disability on the cover. Again, I don't have to do any of these things, but I would be doing a disservice to myself first and a disservice to the disabled community if I pretended as if I'm not a disabled baddie. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous. And so, yeah, that's why I do what I do. I also have light skin privilege too, so that also helps with white people who are racist. They're like, but she looks like maybe she is white, but she also, you don't. Okay, well, now I'm going to I'm going to be mindful about who may have disabilities. May I be mindful about the stereotypes I have of Black people and how I feel like Akilah talks white, but actually she just has 3 degrees and is an American, like stuff like that.
Okay, let's transition into talking about your community involvement with the disability community, and let's talk a little bit about your book and that process and how that came to be.
Sure.
Okay, your book, you titled your book White Supremacy is All Around. That's a really bold and direct title. What made you feel like this was a message that needed to be heard that clearly right now?
Yeah, so this was not the original title of the book. The original title of the book is was My Love Language is Dismantling White Supremacy. And I am the child of a lawyer, so I had a conditional uh use for the trademark of white my love language is dismantling white supremacy. But then the love languages guy, Gary Chapman, so like the 5 love language guy, his lawyers came after me and threatened to sue me and do all this horrible, horrible things to me. And even though I had the conditional use approval, I would have to go to like trademark court, which could be on the short end, $10,000, on the high end, hundreds of thousands of dollars to keep the trademark. So here I am writing a book about white supremacy, dealing with white supremacy from this homophobic at best white guy, Gary Chapman, um, attacking me. So this is where I always love saying that you can just Google Gary Chapman, the author of Love Languages, and you'll see on his website that he has guides, tools, and language around how to like gay your child and make sure your child is not trans. And so basically the love languages are for cis, hetero, non-disabled, white people. between a man and a woman, you know? And so I always encourage people to not use love languages because they don't realize they're actually upholding white supremacy. So, fun fact. Anyway, so I'm writing my book, dealing with this legal battle. And in one of my chapters, I thought of the movie Love Actually, the holiday movie, which I happen to love that movie. And there's a part in that movie where um, Hugh Grant, the main character, says, love actually is all around. And I was like, white supremacy is all around. And that's why I wrote my book. And so when I had to rename the title of the book, and that's how white supremacy is all around came up. And I actually love this title more. I was pissed at first, but I love this title more because as we are in Donald and Co.'s America. So there's a 2018 study that shows that if you call someone by their first name, they're not qualified to do their job. That's why it was Kamala and Trump running for the last presidential election, because that's to devalue Kamala Harris. So I devalue Donald, Pete, James David, Mark Wayne, all of them by calling them their first name. I call them Donald and Co. Right. And so as we came into what I already talk about in this book about how horrible Donald is and how, like in the first chapter of this book, it's called White Women Are Exhausting, how white women have put us into this position that we are in now, how white women have voted for Donald again, how white women have disabled children, and they didn't realize that putting Donald in office would impact their education, their care, their access, their health care. How white women voted for Donald Trump that has now taken their subsidies away for their health benefit exchange in whatever state they had, or requiring them to work more, all of that. That once he got into office in 2025, that people can see that white supremacy is all around, right? So Donald Trump is a homophobic, ableist, white supremacist, xenophobe, um, racist, transphobic, and the list goes on and on. He is a horrible person. And so, being that he upholds values of white supremacy as a white supremacist, people now today are like, oh, finally, I can be openly white supremacist again. I can do all the things that I've missed doing. And what people fail to realize is that when you have the person who's in the most power openly be a white supremacist and a horrible person, he just talked viciously about disabled folks earlier this week, right? And saying that anyone with a learning disability can't be president. And that's on top of other things that he's said and name calling for disabled folks and any oppressed group. The Americans feel they can do the same thing to us. So that means if you are an oppressed person, if you are non-white, if you are disabled, if you are from the queer community, if you are a Black or brown immigrant, sometimes white immigrants, if you are low income, you are now experiencing a whole new level of oppression. Because why? White supremacy is all around. Day one, DEI was eliminated and you could no longer be trans. That's not how it works, but we're seeing the impact of that. Right now, there's a state where you cannot drive if you're a trans person. Right now, Section 504 is, which is viewed as the ugly law, is being potentially reinstituted in multiple states. In multiple states. So I have the gift of passing. So let's talk about passing. I brought it up multiple times. I can appear as if I'm non-disabled, right? Sean, for you, it may be a little bit harder because people can see just a trig tube. People may be able to see or hear that you communicate in a different way, right? Someone like you in a state that goes back to these ugly laws could not go outside, could not have a job, could not go to the movies, could not go to the grocery store, right? And that's all because we have a white supremacist who's the president of the United States. Now, people will argue with me all the time, and you are not ugly, you're beautiful. Have one of the best smiles around. Your sense of humor is also top tier, I will say. But There are people who will say, it's no, he's not a white supremacist. No, it's not that big of a deal. Okay, well, let's use Barack Obama. Barack Obama, also a two-term president, when he was president, and every president does fucked up shit, by the way. When he was president, the amount of Black-owned businesses skyrocketed to historic levels because Black people were like, well, if he could be the president of the United States, maybe I could open this business, this shop, this store, this salon, this restaurant. Because the person who had the most power made it possible for them to see themselves. And that's what's happening. And I know I'm on this rant, but that is why I say white supremacy is all around. And so even though my book came out 2 years ago, there's people who are still quoting my book. Books have long lives. People who are now realizing why I wrote this book. People are reading it for the first time this week, last week, and catching up. And that's because I was ahead of the curve and I tried to tell everyone, but no one wanted to listen. And so now we are in a position where our human rights, our civil rights are drastically impacted. Measles has come back. There's hunger in different places. Health research has been reduced. We're seeing the end of research for so many things that could contribute to our health and care and our education. We're seeing things that people wouldn't necessarily understand that if you aren't getting um, certain tax benefits by being a physician, that it's going to slow down the progression of people wanting to be a physician because you can't, if you work at a public hospital for X amount of time, you can wipe out your student debt for healthcare. And that was important, particularly for Black and Brown providers and specialists who are important to me and you, Sean, also Raven, important to us. And that pipeline is going to change. There's going to be so much damage that's been done in this past year and however long this man is unfortunately alive that will take forever to undo. But people do not see that because America is racist as fuck. It's rooted in white supremacy. That's how it was founded. It's founded by heterosexual, cisgendered, non-disabled, enslaver owning, land owning white men. So none of us are supposed to be here. Raven, Akilah, Sean, we're not supposed to be here. We're not supposed to be here. And Make America Great Again is just going back to the origins of America. And that wasn't for us. Thank you, Sean. I'm glad you like what I'm saying.
Okay. Um, I'm not sure if you answered this already. I tried to listen for it, but how do you feel white supremacy affects the disabled community? Rarely when disabled people are in the mainstream media, they feature any BIPOC or queer disabled people.
Oof. All right.
And the
So,
and the follow-up question is, sorry, the follow-up question is, what steps do you think we can take to improve it? Um, what steps do you think we can take to improve it?
yeah. So let's talk about white supremacy. White supremacy means white people get the social determinants of health. What are the social determinants of health? Access to healthcare, equitable healthcare, being believed, living in walkable communities that have parks, access to public transportation, living in communities that have grocery stores, having a job that pays your bills so that you can meet all your needs, right? To thrive, not living in a neighborhood that has any violence, police brutality. It means being able to have your pain being believed in the emergency room, right? So I always tell folks I would love, I would love the benefits of white supremacy. Folks will be like, Dr. Cadet, why? Well, so like I just said, I could go to the emergency room and my pain would be believed. I wouldn't be told I'm an anxious, stressed out woman. I wouldn't be told I'm a drug seeker because I'm a Black person. Because Black women's pain is not believed in America. And that's because of the enslavement of Black people here and how white people had to make sure that the murdering, the raping, the burning bodies alive, the lynching, the whipping, the severing of limbs actually didn't hurt us the same as white people because we had a higher pain tolerance. And so still today, as recent as 2016, healthcare providers are taught that Black people have a higher pain tolerance. And that's not true. It's all rooted in the history of enslavement in this country. The reason why I would love the benefit of white supremacy is when I drive my luxury car, and if I'm pulled over, that I would get speeding ticket or just a little slap on the wrist to slow down, not arrested, not murdered, not maimed, not harassed, not becoming a video or statistic. It would mean that when I'm in the line at a cafe, a white person wouldn't cut in front of me because they didn't see me in the line. So everyone knows how lines work. If you have gone to school, you had to line up at some point in time, right? It would be getting promoted at work in a 9 to 5 job without the qualifications, right? These are the benefits of white supremacy. But the way white supremacy works says white supremacy is only for white people or those who acclimate or identify with white supremacy. Like Dr. Ben Carson, he acclimates with white supremacy. So that is what I would like to have. And that is what we don't have. Now, white supremacy also means that the most superior person is a heterosexual, non-disabled, cisgendered white man. He's on the top of the white supremacy food chain. Second would be same, but adding a woman there. If that person's lesbian or gay, they don't get as much power because they're not perfect. They're not superior. If that person is disabled, less power, right? So when you have more intersectionality, the intersections of our identity, that devalues the person. They have more opportunities of oppression. So when we talk about white supremacy and how it ties to all the things that cause harm, colonialism, capitalism, oppression, uh, the list goes on and on of the systems and structures that want to devalue, to hold a group superior to another group. That's why there's so many wars happening right now. That's why, America and Israel are hanging out and doing horrible things to and oppressing other countries. It's why the Americans with Disabilities Act didn't happen until 1990. So disabled people have been part of America, of the world since the beginning of time. This is nothing new. But it wasn't until 1990 people were like, yeah, we should probably put ramps up. Let's put some ramps up, right? Oh yeah, I guess disabled people can work. Do they have value? Yeah, sure, they can come outside. So when you are valued as less than, which disabled people are valued as, then that is part of white supremacy. Ableism is part of white supremacy. It's why people will DM me or put in comments that I'm a disabled monkey bitch. See, it's inclusive. Bitch, woman, disabled because I am, and monkey because I'm Black, right? It's all of that is tied together. It's the very reason why, if I'm privileged enough to fly somewhere in a lay flat seat, that may be business or first class, that I'm stopped and told, no, you can't pre-board. I'm like, I'm disabled. No, but you're in first or business class. Nope, I'm disabled, so I'm gonna pre-board. Yeah, but you don't look disabled. Yeah, you can't ask me that because of the Americans with Disabilities Act, right? So it shows up in so many ways. And so that's why I advocate to dismantle white supremacy, because if we dismantle white supremacy, we're dismantling capitalism, we're dismantling ableism, transphobia, homophobia, xenophobia. We're dismantling all of the things. And it's really important to note the second part of the question. In the disabled community, there are heterosexual, cisgender, disabled white guys who are treated significantly different than Sean or Akilah. So, oh my gosh, ALS, we got to treat you right away. We got to make sure you're fine. We have to make sure you have all these things. Let's get you all the tools. You're going to have in-home care. But for me, when I'm discharged from major inpatient surgery, it's like you got to pick between occupational therapy or therapy. Which one do you want? Well, I need both because I have to learn how to do this stuff all over again, right? But I won't get that. Even though I have a platinum PPO, I have the most expensive healthcare plan that is there because I don't get the benefits of that white supremacy food chain. There's white guys I know who are disabled who say racist stuff all the time, sexist stuff all the time, because they're in proximity to that power of that white guy who has the most power, right? And it's also the very people who will question, and this is a real thing. The Ehlers-Danlos Society did a post about like me and my book, and because I talk about my Ehlers-Danlos journey in my book. And so many white people were upset that they were highlighting that my journey was harder than theirs. And I never said it was harder than theirs. I was just talking about my intersectionality of being a Black person and a woman and how my pain is not believed. And they were mad. And then for the society to not know how to respond to those comments. And so now here I am having to intervene with telling them they need to reply and hold people accountable because my experience is actually different as a Black woman in pain than a white woman in pain, than a white guy in pain. My risk of death is exponential to a white person with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. The amount of time it's going to take me to get diagnosed with something is exponential compared to a white person. Because remember, my ancestors' Black women's bodies were used for medical experimentation with no pain meds, no pain management, because they were already doing horrible things to us. So they use our bodies in different ways.
Mhm.
End of rant.
Okay, so our next question is, so supremacy is often looked at as a big extreme system that is dangerous to our society. How do we then put a hyper focus on the subtle and unnoticeable versions of it?
Yeah, so white supremacy is multifaceted. It's all around, right? There's layers to it. There's so many parts to it. And so it's realizing that when I'm saying dismantle white supremacy, I'm not saying you have to go and be an activist and change policy, system, and structure. Can you? Yeah. But it's more so, are you going to see me in line at the cafe? Are you going to think when you see a Black man walking down the street that they're going to steal your purse? Like that internalized bias needs to be checked. Same with ableism. Internalized bias needs to be checked, right? So what people don't realize is that their thoughts, their actions, and their behaviors need to be dismantled first before there's systemic change that's out there. Those are the little things that have big impact. We call them microaggressions, which is horrible because they're actually quite micro. They're big, right? So when someone says you don't look disabled, that's a microaggression. Or how are you disabled? That's a microaggression. I don't have to tell you. Also, I'm a public figure. You could just ask me my name and use whatever search tool you want, and it will come up. Like it's easy to to do. But folks are in this position where they always want to feel superior. They don't want to be in a position of any type of fear, which gets back to what you said earlier with grief. Grief and fear are connected. And that's why people have a hard time with disability. And that's why they're also quite ableist because they feel inferior. If they're diagnosed with something that puts them in a disability category, they feel inferior to the superiority that is white supremacy. It's the same fear people have around death. I am not afraid to die. I'm not afraid to die at all. I am very proud to be disabled. They're tied, right? So imagine if people realized that if when they become disabled, because they will, we're living longer and longer. People can have an accident at any moment in time. We're having more science around autoimmune things and how they pop up. Um, but when they become disabled, that's the time where they'll realize, oh, I could have said something differently. I could have moved differently. I could have done something differently because when you are being kind to a disabled person, when you're accommodating a disabled person, you are preparing for your future life of yourself or a loved one. But people don't see that. They can't make that connection. And when that happens, that further upholds superiority and white supremacy, because that's like the top of things. So if they're viewing disabled folks as less than, if they're viewing Black people as less than, if they're viewing immigrants as less than, they're ultimately perpetuating this narrative where if they identify with or become part of that group, right? That they are going to be inferior. So that's the thing with white supremacy, which is hilarious to me. White people don't realize that they have the power to just dismantle white supremacy overnight, to be like, no, everyone deserves the same. But they don't want to do that because they know how those who are not white, who are not disabled, who are not part of the queer communities, you know, are treated, and they don't want that. They can't realize that if you treat everyone the same, we wouldn't have these problems. We'd have better resourcing for our disabled community. We would have less police brutality for Black and Brown communities. Like, tell me the time when a curb cut has hurt anyone. When has a curb cut hurt anyone? You know, and now like the youth, the kids are like, I'm a captions person. I love captions on all the time. You're welcome, because that came from the disabled community. Text messaging that you love to do, disabled community. You being on whatever social media platform and you're working, but you can't have the sound on, those are from us. Your toothbrush that times you exactly, that's from the disabled community. But yet they don't want to acknowledge their superiority, their supremacism, how they benefited from, you know, our advocacy in spaces and places. So
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm going through the document here. Okay. So let's move on to your podcast. Tell me a little bit about your podcast, Humane Rights. Tell me what it's about and talk to me about why you created it, um, and how that journey came about.
yeah, so I'll connect it back to my book, White Supremacy is All Around. And so I wrote the book because I wanted people to understand how intersectionality shows up. I keep talking about intersectionality, but I'll break it down. It's the intersections of our identity. It's a term coined by Kimberly Crenshaw in 1989, a Black woman. Says that, you know, your identity impacts your lived experience, right? So if you think about a bus full of everyone in America going down the street, and that first intersection is people who make $100,000 or less, they've got off. The next intersection, women. The next intersection, LGBTQ plus community, the next intersection, disabled community. That bus goes down to the end and the final destination. You'll have that superior group, heterosexual, non-disabled, cisgendered white men, right? So I wanted to talk about in my book how intersectionality shows up to help people learn and unlearn. Now, learning is easier for folks to do. Unlearning is the hard part. Unlearning what you thought was right and true. And so that people can move differently, that they can check their bias and their behavior, and make it as routine of like, okay, why do I feel this way about a Black person? Why do I feel this way about a disabled person? To check their bias and check their privilege as routine as brushing your teeth and putting on your deodorant every day. Like that's the normal thing you do. You have to dismantle white supremacy within yourself. So that's why I wrote the book. That's why I wanted to talk about my intersectionality as a Black person, as a woman, and as a disabled person to help people fucking figure it out. So I had a cast at that time called Soft Black Women on Betches Media that was around like the news cycle and bringing in intersectionality paired with the rollout of my book. Long story short, they are Zionists, and I was let go because I believe in the liberation of Palestinians and anyone who's oppressed, Haitian folks, Congolese, Tigray, goes on and on. So I lost my podcast that was supposed to happen with my book. Uh, it was devastating. But then I was approached by a startup media network called CL Media Network, and they were like, "We have interest in maybe developing a show with you." And that is how Humane Rights came about. And I named it Humane Rights because um, this organization that I'm part of called Represent Collaborative, I'm the chief creative officer. The board, we were thinking about how can we maybe help folks understand, like get back to humanity. And so we came up with Humane Rights. We didn't have the capacity to launch it with this other organization. And so I reached out to them and I said, hey, what if I named the podcast Humane Rights? And they were like, absolutely. So Humane rights is definitely a play on words. When people hear humane, they tend to think of like the humane society. They think of
Yeah.
animals, right? But humane actually means humanity. And being that the podcast launched this year and Donald and co have been attacking us, I wanted to find ways to get back to humanity. So, yeah, we can talk about the difficult things, but how are we, like you asked me earlier, how are we still finding joy? How are we still showing up when we are coming from a place of oppression? Or how are we using our power and privilege to still show up in ways that we're not supposed to? And so I interview actors and celebrities and comedians and creatives and artists and leaders. And we talk about these things. And I keep it very simple. I ask one question: what does humane rights mean to you? And these definitions that we get, they're just so beautiful. And I'm like, oh shit, and I'm thinking, but I'm role modeling learning and unlearning, right? At the same time, we get into how they're finding ways to tap into joy, what's on their mind, what's happening. We talk about sports. So I interviewed someone from the WNBA Valkyries here, and that was a prolific team last season. I interviewed W. Kamau Bell, comedian and activist who's done so much work, and have like a profound conversation with him. I am talking to Kendrick Sampson, and he's playing Quincy Jones in the Michael Jackson movie that's coming out. And how do you like show up, in these spaces? Because there's layers and complexity to the legacy of Michael Jackson. And then I'm one episode I'm talking about dating with a prolific producer, and how much dating sucks. But all of these things just remind us to get back to humanity. I feel like humanity humanity is slipping away every day. I saw this post actually this morning talking about how it's like the first time in America, and I'm probably in a long time, like modern history, where we are like actually mourning the loss of our rights and democracy. We're losing them. We're actively losing them. And and somehow you're still doing this podcast, and I'm still being a troublemaker, getting stuff done, right? And it's a really like profound time, um, because kids will be studying this in the history books of this administration, of how white supremacy showed up, how the planet is dying. I mean, all of these things, how we're dealing with multiple genocides. And so I just really wanted to get back to humanity. And so Humane Rights is filmed here. I live in Oakland, California. It's filmed in Berkeley, California, Berkeley, California. And it's shot in a studio that is owned by a woman of color and a disabled white man, which I love. The media company is majority BIPOC, and so it's a nice home to be in. I can talk about the liberation of anyone, and not be, canceled. I'll never be canceled for that, but that's what the other media company wanted to do for me. But yeah, so that's Humane Rights.
Hmm. What do you hope people take away from your show, whether you're listening, watching, or engaging through transcripts?
Yeah, I hope that they realize that, one, there's people who look and live like them. Um, Two, you do still matter. Like that, the way you may feel matters. Um, the frustration you may feel or have matters, and that you can still tap into joy no matter what that frustration of may be, and that you have a choice of learning and unlearning. If you're here to listen to stories I share, stories the guests share, that you have the muscle to keep learning and unlearning, to be the antithesis to the white supremacy that is happening on a daily basis.
Okay. What? Okay. So this is another two-part question.
Okay.
I would love to be a guest on your show as well.
Yes.
Hopefully we can make that happen, even if it's not this current season. What do
Yes.
you what do you look for in guests? Do you always reach out to them or do you let people come to you as well?
So this is the first season. We wrapped the first season already. We're getting through the first season, thinking about the second season at the same time. So this season was different. I reached out to the folks to see if they would come on. My like dream first guest was W. Kamau Bell, and he lives here in the Bay Area. And so when he said yes, I was like, what? That's wild. Because I had like never officially no, I knew we worked together on this other little project for the soccer team that I own, but I he's such a big deal that I didn't think he would say yes. For some reason, no, but he actually really likes me. So I don't know why. I don't know. It was probably just being a perfectionist. So when he was like, yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, this is happening. And so I was able to reach out to most folks and they were able to come on. Some weren't, but hopefully we'll have them next season. Um, I also wanted to make sure that the podcast, both visual and audio, would be inclusive. And so even though we have a studio, folks, either all but one guest were in the studio, one was virtual. Everyone does an image description, and we have written captions. So, like, it's not a total on and off situation, they're just there. The captions are going to be there. I proofread all the captions to the best of my ability because um, I'm hard of hearing and I will say words differently. So I always want to make sure that the words are, like correct. And then we also have transcripts for the deafblind community as well. So it's like as accessible can be with the technology that we're given to like have a podcast. And then I also um, really want to make sure that folks know that I'm bringing the intersectionality, I'm bringing disability, I'm bringing being a woman, I'm bringing being a Black person. That's like straight and forward with everything I do. Um, so yeah, and so the second season we're like figuring that out. I'll be honest with you, it all depends on the resourcing that'll be there because it takes a lot of time and energy to have a video and audio production. But I look forward to that, and you would be a wonderful guest to have.
Okay, and our final question for the interview is, was there anything else you wanted to discuss today that we didn't touch on, or any questions for me?
Yeah, of course I have a question for you. And what ways are you finding little pockets of joy?
So I love time management games like Diner Dash and Build a Lot.
Oh, wow. That's exciting. You give gamer vibes, which is great. I love anything from my childhood snacks. That is like a happy place for me. So like fruit by the foot or Capri Sun or something like that just brings me joy. And my last question for you, what are you most proud of with your podcast?
What I love most is that I get people to focus on the disabled aspect of their profession, no matter if it's a singer, TV personality, or doctor or parent. I ask questions that rarely get answered and it challenges them.
I think it's fantastic. Keep it up.
Thank you so much for coming on with me and having this conversation with me. I really enjoyed it and I hope you did too. I appreciate all the insights you shared. Before you wrap up, if people want to connect with you or support you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so the book, White Supremacy is All Around, is available wherever books are sold or on my website. You can follow me at Change Cadet at CHANGCADET on any social media platform. You can subscribe to Humane Rights, my podcast, on any platform you listen to podcast or watch podcast. And then you can follow my Substack, Change Cadet Action Network. Either search my name or Change Cadet Action Network on Substack. I want to remind everyone to keep being amazing. Remember, you have the gift to learn and unlearn every single day. And to Raven and Sean, remember to do something to celebrate yourselves today. And thank you so much for having me. Keep being amazing.
I'll make sure everything is linked in the description below. Once again, I'm Sean Gold. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe. And make sure to hit the bell so you're notified when new episodes of Crippled by Culture go live. I see you next time.
Want to listen to Crippled by Culture on your favorite podcast platform? Well, now you can. Crippled by Culture is now available wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search up the show title and make sure you subscribe. Thank you for being a listener.